Good? Okay.
Do it again.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almighty and everlasting God, who presides over all things in heaven and earth, come and preside over these deliberations, so that those that make the decision may be guided by the wisdom.
Roll call, Mr. Barrett.
Here.
Mr. Brooks.
Here.
Mr. Marconi.
Here.
Mr. Belushko.
Here.
Mrs. Gilbert-McBride.
Present.
Also in attendance is Mayor George Brown. That's better. Darren Snyder. Administrator Charlie McCormick. Assistant City Attorney Maureen Collins. Assistant City Clerk Tracy Smith. Administrative Assistant Lisa Sanford. Good evening. Welcome to tonight's regular session of City Council. Please turn off all cell phones. The following are examples of some important council rules. They are not intended to be a complete list. Please adhere as closely as possible to the 5-minute speaker presentation time limit. All remarks shall be addressed to the council and not to any individual member. No persons are allowed to address the council from beyond the rail, except the speaker at the dais who has the floor. The chairperson shall preserve order and decorum and prevent attacks on personalities. Chairperson shall determine all points of order. No person except city officers or their representatives shall be permitted within the rail during any meeting without the express permission of the council. And finally, when members of the administration are speaking, please stand up and speak into the microphone.
If anyone would like to speak on pending legislation, Linda?
Linda Joseph, Wilkes-Barre. I would like to speak about the resolution items proposed by Council for additional monies to be used from the American Rescue Plan funds. We are all fully aware of the programs decided upon and initiated by City Administration a few months ago to help residents and businesses here in Wilkes-Barre using some of the ARP monies. While these programs are very appreciated and helpful, they don't go far enough. I know all everyone hears about is how bad the roads are. These are legitimate, justifiable complaints. Have you driven around all the areas of the city? Good luck finding a road that you don't have to dodge potholes, utility pave cuts, craters, and collapsed storm drains. I understand that some roads have been milled and paved, and that's wonderful. But that is a drop in the bucket of what needs to be done. Money for street signs, line painting, speed limit signs is crucial to the appearance of the city, as is a clean city. Homelessness and domestic violence are serious situations that resource centers need funds for to continue their commitment for helping those who find themselves in these circumstances. Money towards blighted properties, extra money, is a no-brainer, of course. Thank you to Council for realizing that each of the areas you are proposing more ARP monies for have an economic impact in one way or the other, which is one of the accepted uses for the ARP money per the federal government. And some of the above items may not be in the final rules that outlines how this money can be spent. But elected officials are to work for the people. Tell Congressman Cartwright and Senator Casey we need them to work for us and get the necessary approvals to use the ARP monies in other ways that our city needs to survive and to recover from the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on pending legislation?
Just a question, if I may.
Sure.
Very good information, and somebody just mentioned before that we constantly hear about streets and roads, and that's what we hear about most. And Mayor, one of your resolutions here is to, before us, is to sign any and all documents relating to the awarding of the contract to the lowest responsible bidder from the American Rescue Plan street paving sewer project. So there's a little bit of confusion as to whether those funds can be used to restore streets or they can't be used. And I mean, I would agree. I mean, by and large, and that's what we hear most about.
Want me to answer that?
I'd love an answer.
You'll notice that they're listed as sewer and water projects. Okay, we can do the sewer and water projects and we pay the road because it's a sewer and water project. But we're aggressively looking at, when we spent over $1 million last year on roads, we're going to spend more than that this year on roads. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot there now. I agree with you. Every city has potholes, not just Wilkes-Barre, but we can't repair those potholes right now. We don't have the hot asphalt plants open. Once the plant's open, I'm hoping in about 3 weeks, it's going to be very aggressive. We're going to be doing a lot of road repair. I sent council last night some updated roads that we just received yesterday, and I think you've seen the roads we're doing. But to answer the question, it's going to be very aggressive what we're doing. We're doing a massive program down in sidewalk. We're putting in 900 feet of new the sewer system, and you know much of it's going to be paving down there, upgrading down there. That's going to be an area that, I hope you don't mind me saying this, I mean, if I could keep talking, every time that there's high water, that area gets flooded. With this new project we're doing, Jason, you have property down there, when this new project comes to completion, we won't have that flooding situation anymore. So we're investing a lot in infrastructure that we can. That project is a sewer project. We can invest. So but other than that, we are going to be very aggressive in road repair and road paving.
So getting back to the question, unless we're doing a sewer project, we cannot use, what you're saying is we can't use the American Rescue Plan funds to simply pave a street like North Main Street, unless we're doing a utility project in cooperation with it.
We can use it for waterway projects, okay? Let me give you some examples. Laurel Run Creek, we spent about $750,000. We had 3 areas in Laurel Run Creek that we had to use that monies for, okay? It's waterway repair, okay? We can use it for that. There are certain stipulations that we can use it for, Bill, and what we try to do is allocate monies for that. There's a lot of sewer repair we're going to have to do with a lot of the balance of the money we have. I mean, we have money that we have allocated to do some major sewer replacement work in the city. There are certain parts of the city that really need it right now, okay? And there are areas that a lot of people have identified. We're going to be very aggressive in sewer repair. I tear the sewer up, got to pave the road, okay? So sewer, a lot of the money that we have, we want to allocate for sewer repair, okay? And that's where some of that money is going to go.
Okay, thank you.
Did I answer your question, Bill?
You did.
Okay.
Linda, thank you for your presentation. I think that some of us have differing interpretations on how American Rescue Plan funds can be spent. And to your point, this list that we're voting on tonight, there's not any streets from my district, from District C. So I don't see the harm in expanding that funding to help all of our residents in every district. So thank you. Anyone else on pending legislation?
Bob Kalaboski, frequent visitor to Wilkes-Barre City Council. I agree with Linda, the streets are horrible, and but one thing's for sure, we cannot just put the blame on this administration. It was abused for years. We did not fix our roads, and there definitely needs to be fixed. But I think what council got to take into consideration here too is the mayor has been a businessman. He has an attorney working as an administrator. He has 2 as assistant attorney and a full-time attorney. What you don't want to do, like some of the things you're doing, you better make sure it's right. Because if 6 months or 2 years down the road, we find out we allocated money or took money that wasn't supposed to go where it was supposed to go, guess what? We're going to pay it back. And I know there's a lot of infighting here against the mayor, but I think it's better to try to work together and get this stuff straightened out. Because look at the road in front of like at my garage. You know what I mean? It's horrible. And the sad thing is, we used to have a paving crew that used to go around doing it, dig the roads up, put the binder in and stuff. But I think what you've got to do is check with Miss Collins or Mr. Henry or Charlie. You've got to get this stuff straightened out. You take money and use it somewhere it's not supposed to be used, we're going to end up paying it back. And sometimes some of that stuff could turn into be a criminal. So you want to definitely get this stuff straightened out. And that's all I got to say at this moment.
Okay. To kind of quell some of your concerns, I did work with Mr. Henry on the resolution pertaining to the American Rescue Plan funds. And as Attorney Collins said, they're recommendations. So I'm not entirely sure why there's so much animosity towards some of these line items. Again, when they're just recommendations that we would like to see done as council members. So but ultimately, the administration has the final say as to whether or not to allocate money towards these projects.
I just think trying to work together, it would work out in the best for the taxpayers, because in the end, we're the ones who's paying for all this stuff,
Agreed.
one way or the other.
Agreed. I absolutely would love to work together, so I'm hoping that's what happens.
I might let you park illegal.
Thank you. Anyone else on pending legislation? Angel?
Okay, now I have a question. Is the,
Oh, state your name for the record. I'm
Angel
sorry.
Mathis, Wilkes-Barre. Is the rail study on the agenda for today?
Yes, yep.
Okay, it's just a few things. After sitting through the presentation, I'm not sure whether you guys are aware. With Amtrak, Amtrak most likely reached out to you, Mr. Mayor, is because right now, if you're going point south of Philly, and you book a reservation, they actually give you a bus ticket for March to get to 30th Street Station to hop a train to go to other points. I'm not sure whether you guys knew this or not, and they've done it for years. And I just urge you guys to invest in that, because what happens is it is shorten the time it takes from here to Philly. It'll also give us a big opportunity to go other places, Pittsburgh, New York, and it'll bring business in as well. And then the other thing is with the resolutions with the ARP, you know, these are things that we do need. You know, any monies that's given, that's made available to help the city and to help the residents is always appreciated, because the reason why a lot of things aren't done in the city, especially when it comes to home improvement and blight, is because a lot of people don't have money to do it. So please, you know, pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sam?
I have several questions and comments
for the
on
record, sorry.
tonight's agenda. Sorry. That's why I think the 5-minute limit does not go far enough. First of all, my hearing isn't the best, I admit it. The exchange between Mr. Barrett and the mayor a moment ago, was there anything mentioned about the cost, Mayor or Mr. Barrett, on the sewer repair? And this is all storm sewers, I agree. I assume, right? It's not sanitary sewers, which is within the purview of the WVSA. What is the figure? I mean, I assume there are some parameters. You can't just take, $5 million or something, and there's no figure listed here on the, I know it's going to the lowest possible bidder, but there must be some parameters here as to how many sewers you're going to repair. I mean, maybe you went over that and I missed it, but was there a final figure on that? Because I assume he's working within the parameters of the ARP, what's allowed to be spent here. And if that's the case, Mr. Mayor, I guess we could lay to rest any reservations or anxieties that we as taxpayers have about privatizing the sewer system. So if you're going to commit to repairing all these storm sewers, I guess that's going to preclude the need to privatize, correct? I don't know if you could commit on that, but I'd like to know, because I wouldn't like to have here what happened in Scranton, where they privatized the water system and their rates went sky high. We're already suffering with a lot of problems financially, as you know, that's city and the individuals, the taxpayers. But I don't think that council should really pass something like this, consider this resolution, without a figure given in here. I mean, you people, maybe you people know it, maybe he said it a moment ago, but I don't know what it is. And this blight remediation project, I thought there was an existing program now, correct? So I'm just wondering if this $100,000 that is going to be applied for here is going to involve any expansion of powers on the part of the city, for instance, for eminent domain, to seize properties, is that going to accompany this grant? And it's, because this, a lot of people, in a lot of cases, the city might seize homes that people are reluctant, don't want this to happen. And eminent domain can be a tool that can get out of hand and take advantage of people's homes for no reason. And you consider something a blight, maybe they don't. Since I don't have very much time left, I would like to comment on the other part of the agenda, the first page, the resolutions. These figures were arrived at, I assume, somewhat arbitrarily. I understand that Ms. Gilbert McBride worked with the solicitor in coming up with these, and I guess the figures were comparable to, I see there's some overlap between the mayor's intents and council's here. And that's maybe a good thing. I'm glad council is asserting itself, by the way, and coming up with some figures too, because I think we don't want too much autocracy here, Mayor. I know we have a strong mayor form of government, but I think council should have some say in how this money is spent, and I think this is a good thing. Some of these proposals are great. I especially back the study for the, the possibility of a rail, connecting the rail, the beautification of Wilkes-Barre. But again, more specifics have to be, I think, before I finish, just let me make clear, I think it would be in the best interest of the public to have a formal hearing on all this. I know the mayor already has some money committed, and I want to add to this possible list in my time remaining, but I think we need a formal hearing. I understand that Beth put something on her Facebook page and people responded. I don't think that goes far enough. I think a lot of people, like Ms. Joseph previously, ought to have the chance. Some people are afraid to speak up, on this. Maybe they could phone in and give their opinions on how and where this money should be spent. What the specifics, for instance, what are you going to do to improve homeless services and affordable housing? So far, I think this administration has done very little. In fact, it's done the opposite. You cleaned up a homeless place down there under South Street. Where do those people go? I think you aggravated the problem, Mayor. I can't believe in your heart that this thing is going to be remediated by council's proposal or yours. I would like to add, before my time is up, possible other ways to spend the money. Energy audit, desperately needed, to see what the status, to what extent the city's wasting energy, to ways more more energy can be saved, and that's all I have to say. I guess my time is up, but I appreciate some feedback there.
Mr. Troy, I completely agree with you that a formal hearing should be completed. I think that...
I forgot a comment about the tree commission. My own
going on.
I get an extra 10 seconds?
It's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda
Not on the
anymore. It's
agenda.
gone.
Oh,
So
they removed
next
it?
time.
Yeah,
Oh, you removed it.
come back next meeting.
Yeah, next time.
God willing, I'm here.
So I agree with you that a formal hearing is needed to hear citizens' input. Like you said, I did put it on my Facebook page, but that only goes so far. And I think that, the more voices we have in the room, the better. And I don't see why hearing from the public would be a bad thing. I am currently looking into proposing a citizens advisory board for American Rescue Plan funds, so that even if for some reason we can't have a formal town-wide meeting, at least we have an advisory board that could make some proposals to the administration for American Rescue Plan spending. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, and thank you.
Thank you.
Jason Carr, Saylorsburg, Pennsylvania. Good evening, Madam Chairwoman. I would just like to respectfully ask the mayor tonight to, if passed, resolutions number 4 and 5, I wish that he would veto those affirmations of these two resolutions. He went through a very detailed explanation of what his administration is currently doing for the citizens. As Mr. Kaldabowski just stated, I think the motive behind resolution number 5, with all $6 million of allocation, I think it was obviously, when I read it and then realized what was going on, you want to fight with the mayor. You want to call him out. You want to make this a political move against him. But I think there is a plan that he has. And I think obviously that council has to work together with the mayor. This city is desperately struggling with gangs, with violence, with filth, with a failing downtown. And it's better, instead of going onto Facebook and fighting with the mayor over Facebook and trying to get consensus with the citizens, it might be better to sit down with the mayor and work out a plan and maybe gain some transparency. I think as of right now, I don't know if I asked anybody on council right now, any of the 5 council members, if they could actually tell you or tell the public that sits here tonight or is watching how much money has actually been spent by the city through the American Rescue Plan. If anybody could tell me, I'll give you $100. But I'm sure you couldn't tell us, give us an exact figure. I'm positive of that. The citizens want the mayor to be successful. Looking at the money that's being allocated, it's almost juvenile to ask for all this money, $1 million for a pothole repair truck, when something like that doesn't even cost $200,000. Again, I think in past comments, this resolution number 5 shows your lack of preparedness and the lack of effort that you put forth at your jobs as council members. It's actually probably even embarrassing, Madam Chairwoman. Yeah, everybody on this council needs to work harder. The city is not doing well. And everybody that sits behind me tonight or watching can attest to that. I think secondly, you heard tonight the presentation regarding the train going to Philadelphia. There's no political will, I think, locally for that to happen. And if anything, I think the mayor already knows this. All roads lead to Scranton. So if you want something to happen regarding a train, as the doctor just said, it probably has to go up to Scranton. And as well, you have a transcendent politician named Paige Cognetti, who is probably going to end up someday probably being a senator for the state of Pennsylvania. And if it's going to happen, she can get it done. So it's very obvious that hopefully the mayor is in close contact and possibly makes that happen. But this is at least a 10 to 20 year project. It's not going to happen overnight. And I think rather than spend $100,000 on a study, why don't we get some garbage cans in the city? So it really, for this council, it's desperation at this point. I think every business person in the city wants the city to be successful, because if the mayor is successful, the businesses are successful. And we want to get behind the mayor. Just the last point that the mayor made, I would have no problem if the mayor spent $20 million on sewer lines, because that would mean that the sewer lines would be replaced, the roads that underneath or on top of the sewer lines would be paved, and I would think that the mayor would come to the conclusion that maybe we can get rid of the sewer maintenance fee. So those are things that the mayor could probably work on for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on pending legislation? Sam? Okay, and just state your name for the...
Okay, Sam Conklin, Wilkes-Barre. I'm talking about the resolution to enter into agreement with Transportation Economics and Management Systems for the $100,000 fee. So, over the last couple of years, I have been studying urban planning and how cities really work, the architecture of cities and so on. And I actually am going to university next year to study architecture. Right now, I'm over at Wilkes-Barre Area High School, and I work at a grocery store. So on a daily basis, I do communicate with people between the ages of 14 and about 65. And as you can probably understand, talking to the same people every day, you eventually won't get through all of the pleasantries and start talking about politics. And I find that no age group can have a single opinion on a political issue, except for this one specific issue, which is everyone I've talked to on a regular basis absolutely wants an Amtrak line going through Wilkes-Barre down to Philadelphia. And there's a few reasons why I think pretty much everyone I know wants an Amtrak line. The first reason really is that it's cheaper for most people. Gas prices are pretty high right now. March tickets to Philadelphia round trip is $104, and the Amtrak shuttle is $94, while a similar distance Amtrak line from Philadelphia to DC, a round trip cost would be just $40. It's way safer. There's almost never any deaths on trains, and if there is any kind of derailment on a train, it usually just results in injuries, no deaths. And it is way more convenient for people to take a train. I think the vast majority of people I talk to, and most studies show that most people don't want to drive cars everywhere all the time anymore. And it's really important for cities to recognize that we really need more transportation options than just paving new roads for cars. It also means that bringing Amtrak to Wilkes-Barre will bring in tons of economic activity. The Amtrak study that was conducted for the Scranton, New York City line said that there's an estimated $87 million in annual economic activity. So a $100,000 study to show Amtrak that Wilkes-Barre is really serious with implementing proper rail transit in our area will definitely seem like a drop in the bucket 10 years down the line. And if you really think about what else you can spend this $100,000 on, the common alternative is usually car infrastructure, so think Cole Street, that widening Cole Street and extending it, or repaving and widening any road will only really make traffic worse through induced demand. And there's tons of ways car infrastructure environmentally and financially ruins the city. Just for a tip of the iceberg, Strong Towns, an advocacy group made up by former civil engineers, reported that a suburb about the same density as Barney Farms would require a 41% increase in property tax just to repave the entirety of Barney Farms. So we're constantly having to subsidize poor development patterns instead of just even preparing to try alternative forms of transportation. And the important part about this study is that it really shows Amtrak that we are serious about having a cohesive transportation plan. The Federal Department of Transportation no longer wants cities just passively accepting Amtrak. So if you look at what Atlanta and Buffalo does with its Amtrak stations and infrastructure, they're really just glorified sheds by highways. If we really have this study and show them that we're ready for Amtrak, I would say it's more than possible to have some kind of Wilkes-Barre to Philadelphia Scranton line by 2035. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sam,
Yeah.
could I say how utterly impressed I am with you, and thank you so much. This is your second meeting? I think
Yeah.
You were here with your mother last time, and now that you're speaking, there are two city planners in the room right now, and I could tell you, you warmed their hearts immensely. You warmed my heart immensely. And not only that, I'm going to take it 17, 18?
18.
Right? Phenomenal.
Thank you.
Absolutely phenomenal. Keep going in that direction. Thank God you're going to go into architecture and planning, and I just bless you. Wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm biased because he's my nephew.
But I'm just so impressed with you. I've seen you grow up, and I'm just very impressed.
Just
Thank you.
tremendously proud of you.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else on pending legislation?
Mark Schaefer, West River Street. I just wanted to echo what a lot of people are saying, that I agree that the planning study for the train is a good idea. The controller beat me to my question around Reading. Did they do it before Penn DOT approved it or before Amtrak got involved? And I think even if DOT doesn't like it right now, as the doctor was saying, it could be a good leverage point to say, we can show we've gotten this much money, but we will get this much money from the development. So, and as the assistant city attorney said, even if we don't end up going forward with it, just approving this allows the mayor later to do this if he wants to. So it's not an obligation if something goes wrong, but in the abstract, it's a great lobbying tool. Anytime you're lobbying for any policy, to be able to say how much money it's going to generate is always valuable. And in regards to the back and forth around road paving, I do think, I was thinking, another person stole my point, Sam Troy, that I'm glad that we're hearing investment in our infrastructure in terms of sewer and waterways. For the last couple of years, we've all been very concerned about the talk of privatizing our sewer. Sam mentioned the rate increases we've seen in Scranton, and that's a constant we've seen across the state. So I do think the mayor's point about pairing road maintenance with sewer repair is very important. And going forward, we should make sure that we do that, because if you're going to repair a sewer water line, you have to tear up the street. So it wouldn't make any sense to just do random road improvements and then come back later and go, oh no, we have to tear up the street to improve the sewer lines. So I agree that we need more money on our streets, but I do agree with the mayor's point that any investment in our roads should be paired with sewer and waterway improvements so that you're not duplicating efforts. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on pending legislation? No? Okay.
Okay, we can start the voting on the resolutions. The first is a resolution authorizing the disposition of records from the Accounts and Finance Office. Need a motion and a second.
Motion. Second.
Mr. Marconi, second by Mr. Brooks. Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Marconi?
Yes.
Mr. Belishko?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Second resolution is also disposition of records. It's for the Finance Office. We need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Motion by Mrs. McBride.
Second.
Second by Mr. Marconi. Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Marconi?
Yes.
Mr. Belishko?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
The next one is the authorization and the disposition of records from the Controller's Office. Motion and a second.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Marconi.
Second.
By Mr. Belishko. And roll call, Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
Mr. Marconi.
Yes.
Mr. Belishko.
Yes.
Mrs. McBride.
Yes.
Next resolution is authorizing the Barber City officials to enter into an agreement with Transportation Economics Management System, Inc. to conduct a passenger rail study for a fee of $100,000. Motion and a second.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Brooks.
Second.
Second by Mrs. McBride. Mr. Barrett.
No.
Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
Mr. Marconi.
Yes.
Mr. Belishko.
Yes.
Mrs. McBride.
Yes.
The next is authorizing the proper city officials to use American Rescue Plan funds for the 8 items that are listed there that we went over earlier. Need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Brooks.
Second.
Second by Mr. Marconi. Mr. Barrett.
No.
Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
Mr. Marconi.
Yes.
Mr. Belishko.
No.
And Mrs. McBride.
Yes.
Next is a resolution authorizing proper city officials to sign documents related to awarding the contract to the lowest responsible bidder for the American Rescue Plan Street Paving Sewer Project.
Motion. Second.
sorry, who was the motion? Mr. Brooks. And a second? Mr. Marconi? Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Marconi?
Yes.
Mr. Belishko?
Yes.
Mrs. Gilbert?
Yes.
Authorizing proper city officials to submit a $100,000 Keystone Community Program grant application funded by the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development to be used for the City of Wilkes-Barre's blight remediation project. A motion and a second.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Barrett. Second by Mr. Brooks. Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
Mr. Marconi.
Yes.
Mr. Belishko.
Yes.
And Mrs. Gilbert McBride.
Yes.
We have the resolution appointing Larry Newman to the Planning Commission. Motion and a second.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Belishko.
Second.
Second by Mr. Brooks.
I don't mean to hog everything, sorry.
Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
Mr. Brooks.
I want to acknowledge Mr. Newman is here and thank him so much for stepping forward. I'm glad you're a practicing planner and it's all working out, so vote yes.
Mr. Marconi.
Yes.
Mr. Belishko.
Yes.
And Mrs. McBride.
Yes.
Next is reappointing Jessica McClay to the Traffic Committee. Motion and a second.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Brooks.
Second.
Second by Mr. Barrett. Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
Mr. Brooks.
Yes, I also want to recognize Jessica again and thank you for your service to the city.
Mr. Marconi.
Yes.
Mr. Belishko.
Yes.
Mrs. McBride.
Yes.
And reappointing Carl Nasik to the Traffic Committee. We need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Brooks.
Second.
Second by Mr. Marconi. Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
Mr. Marconi.
Yes.
Mr. Belishko.
Yes.
And Mrs. McBride.
Yes.
This is Brooks and Barrett. Okay, now we have for second reading, file council number 1 of 2022, an ordinance amending chapter 22 of the Wilkes-Barre City Code of Ordinances entitled Planning. Need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Brooks.
Second.
Second by Mrs. McBride. Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
Mr. Marconi.
Yes.
Mr. Belishko.
Yes.
Mrs. McBride.
Yes.
And finally, we have a file council number 2 of 2022, an ordinance amending Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Wilkes-Barre, titled Administrative Code.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Brooks,
Second.
second by Mr. Marconi. Mr. Barrett,
Yes.
Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
Mr. Marconi.
Yes.
Mr. Belishko.
Yes.
Mrs. McBride.
Yes.
And last, I'm sorry, is the
Nope.
minutes of the regular session of City Council.
Motion.
Mr. Marconi.
Which one?
Second. On the minutes,
Second.
Mrs. McBride. Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
Mr. Marconi.
Yes.
Mr. Belishko.
Yes.
And Mrs. McBride.
Yes.
That's all the business I have.
Okay. Council presentations. Mr. Barrett?
Just wanted to recognize the WVSA and the work they're doing on the street cleaning project that they've already started despite having snow like the day before. I don't know if they did it, but they did. And they're doing a good job. And I believe they're starting at the north end. John, if that's not correct, working their way down. But they are being very thorough. And I would encourage anybody that is in the neighborhoods that they're moving into, just ask people to move their vehicles. It works so much better when they do. But they are doing a great job, and thanks to them. The other thing I want to mention, and somebody here, one of our speakers mentioned it a few minutes ago, and there are a couple examples here that occurred tonight that just brings this to mind. I personally I would love to see a railroad stop here in Wilkes-Barre, and I think the study is a good idea as well, but I think we all have to be on the same page. In that particular instance, PennDOT, Amtrak, and us, and the administration have to be all on the same page and in agreement. I think we just need to work a little bit better to make these things happen. There are reasons why there's processes in place. I haven't seen resolutions come to us in this particular manner ever. And a lot of these ideas, these bullet point ones, they're all great. Nobody can argue against any of those. public square improvements, street work, whatever. I think they're all great and they're all much needed and they deserve our support. But it really doesn't mean much if it doesn't come down to us from where it's supposed to come down to, because it's like pushing a rope. You can't push a rope, you can pull it. If we all pull together, we're going to work together and we're going to get somewhere. I'm not disagreeing with what you have on here, and I know the intentions are good to foster these programs and maybe put a little bit more emphasis on them, but I think that open dialogue between council and the administration goes very far as well. So if we all get ourselves on the same page, and I think we can just accomplish a lot. I mean, everybody's heart's in the right place, but I've been here 18 plus years and I haven't seen this happen, that resolutions come before us, and they're actually basically, as our legal counsel said, they're really meaningless. But if we all work together, we start pulling on that rope together and make these things happen, and we do. We do that time and time again, but in some cases we kind of get off the track a little bit, not to use a pun there. But we are off the track on this a little bit here. I want to get us all back on track and work together, and maybe some more meetings, some more individual meetings, and some more communication, saying, can we put a little bit more emphasis on certain aspects of the American funds? This is not something that's going to come around again. We have to make sure that we do it right, and even one of our speakers here mentioned as well, if we don't do it right, there are consequences. We don't want to be paying things back. We just want to make sure we get it right the first time. But anyway, I just want to pull the rope a little bit and not push it, and I think it will work a whole lot better. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Just one thing on that too. I do have information here for myself to speak about the sanitary and thanking them for cleaning up the north end. I do have a question though, as Mr. Barrett said, you know, if we can get people just to move their vehicles. I noticed that there weren't tickets issued, and I was going to ask Charlie why we didn't issue tickets, or if we're planning on issuing tickets, and you know, maybe if we do, we will get these streets cleaned a little better.
WBSA didn't coordinate with our people.
Okay.
That happens sometimes. We've always had a coordination problem. They're responsible for posting, and if they don't give us the heads up, I'll try to keep following up. Some of our people are there, and they'll catch it when they're going. I'm not arguing WBSA. They do a nice job for us. I'm thankful. But the coordination has always been a difficult process between the city and WBSA. We'll continue to work on it.
Okay.
We don't close our eyes to it.
Yeah. I said it was very refreshing, you know, seeing them, and roads they do look a lot better, obviously, when they're swept. Unfortunately, you know, when they're coming down the middle of the street, it really doesn't do anything for it. That's all I have. Thanks.
Okay. I just want to say that I do agree that council and the administration should be working better together, and you know, what's happened over the past few months, year, it's a sad state of our city, and I do hope the council's informed of more things going on by the administration. And maybe these resolutions are meaningless. Personally, I wasn't put on council to wait around for someone else to make change, so that's why I went ahead and did it myself. Mr. Brooks?
Thank you. In response to a question about how much ARPA money has been spent, I want to thank Councilman Marconi, who brought it up last week, and the administration then for responding to let us know that $9 million has been spent already, and you don't have to give me $100. Other things that I want to bring up, I have like a whole dissertation here. Charlie, I usually send you photos of different potholes, and I will, but there's 3 potholes on Loomis Street between Jones and Parrish. All of McLean Street is completely riddled, starting at Bob's Garage at Spruce, and then going up over the hill down to Brown to Arch Street. It is, when I was there today, someone called me to come take a photo. Watching the cars dodge the potholes was, you need to have a really good driver's license to do it, or you have to have, the only guys who don't dodge them are the SUVs. They just fly right over them. But it's so McLean Street from Spruce all the way down to Arch. And then a good thing that I did notice, LCTA, as they're building their building over here on Pennsylvania Avenue at the end of Ross Street, there is a tremendous amount of dust dirt that is coming out of Pennsylvania Avenue, but they do have a proper machine I see going down, because there are tons of trucks, dump trucks that are coming in and out of there and going up Northampton Street. So I'm really glad to see that they're doing that. But one thing that I did notice as I go on Pennsylvania Avenue underneath the South Street Bridge by Holy Redeemer all the time, and right underneath South Street Bridge, some cut was made across, and when those dump trucks and any other car goes, there's a huge bump. So it was like I guess maybe a pipe was put across the street and it's all sunk in. So it's really loud on those dump trucks as they hit that. So that's underneath the South Street Bridge, Charlie. I have a whole lot of things to discuss. I think next I'll go on to an idea for a police kiosk that I mentioned 2 meetings ago when I brought up that back in the 1930s, and I provided a photo to the press of a police kiosk that was on Public Square in the 30s. Here's an example of did you get one to the mayor too, and to Charlie? This is an example from Baltimore, a police kiosk, and reading in the ARPA funds that this is something that could be spent from the money. I make a suggestion to the administration for a police kiosk on Public Square that could be manned, or stationed 24 hours a day to show the city and the residents of Wilkes-Barre that we mean business and we take safety very, very seriously, and that Public Square is something that we discuss a lot, and I'm going to discuss Public Square and homelessness as well. So this is just another suggestion that I brought up, and I like to keep it in our minds. Next, I want to talk about Sherman Hills. I'm glad to see that the mayor has had several meetings with Sherman Hills and that he has a meeting coming up with the residents. Back on February 24th, I called for the reestablishment of the Sherman Hills Task Force and a Sherman Hills Tenant Association. I have had consistent meetings starting on February 28th with various residents because I think it was Steve Markowski who had a great article about my ideas, and people started calling me from the newspapers, and I would go up and meet with them as well. I know someone's here that wants to speak on Sherman Hills, so I don't want to steal her thunder, but I really would like to see the real owner come to these meetings. His name is Dick Knapp, and he's down in Washington, D.C. area. He's the owner. I really think that he needs to be responsive and show that he means business with Sherman Hills and come up here for the meetings. And then the other question I do have about Sherman Hills is I do know that they're a nonprofit and is wondering, was pilot payment discussed in these meetings, and if so, how much that they would be contributing to the city as well? I'll take a break there if you want to answer that question.
I don't have the exact number. My memory was that we negotiated a amount several $1,000s over what Sherman Hills was paying for a pilot. So the city gained a few bucks. My memory was it might be about 5 or 6 over what Sherman Hills as a private development was paying, but we have the same taxes a little bit more, and that's their pilot.
Great, that's great. Because I always know, is it, if I remember correctly, Madam Chair, the Boston program on pilots, which was 12.5% of what they would if they were private. That's what it is. So I hope, I do know some nonprofits do meet that quote unquote Boston plan, and I'm hopeful that Sherman Hills is certainly one of them. And then, I'm so sorry for taking up so much time. That's what you're here for. I got notes all over the place. Next, I do want to talk about homelessness, and one of the reasons why that line item is in that resolution. As I think many people here do know, there's a team of people meet called the Downtown Rebound Team, and there's the Economic Vitality Committee of the Diamond City Partnership. I want to thank the mayor for participating in writing his recent article in the Times Leader regarding downtown as part of that Downtown Rebound. This committee, we meet mostly every 2 weeks to discuss pertinent issues and struggles facing downtown businesses. And one of the constant topics that come up are homeless on public square and our city parks. In a nutshell, our system is broken. And again, as always, I want to thank the mayor. He gave a keynote speech to the longest day of the year at St. Stephen's is a memorial service for homeless people who have died. And Mayor-elect at the time, George Brown, was there as the keynote speaker in December of 2019, where he said homelessness will be a priority for him, and that we, quote, he says, we have to reflect on who the homeless are. They're veterans who fought for our country, they're wives and husbands, they're people with addictions, they're people who don't have addictions, and we have to recognize them as people. And I completely agree with those statements. The definition of homeless, according to the U.S. Code, section 11302, says is an individual or a family who lacks a fixed, regular, or adequate nighttime residence, or an individual or family with primary nighttime residence that is a public or private place not designed for ordinary use as a regular sleeping accommodation for human beings. And such examples would be a car, a park, an abandoned building, bus or train station, airport, or campground. Keystone Mission, which is building a men's homeless shelter up next to Sherman Hills, they define homeless as an individual or family with no place to call home. They do not define a person as being homeless, instead as a person experiencing homelessness. And the top 5 reasons that cause an individual or family to experience homelessness is mental illness, drug, alcohol, domestic violence, incarceration, the lack of income, poverty, and homelessness is a side effect of the 5 reasons and should not define the individual or family. The numbers of homelessness in Luzerne County, according to a 2020 point-in-time report, this is a report that goes out at a certain time to count homeless, came up with 181 homeless people. However, the 181 individuals in Luzerne County do not account for the following: couch surfers, tent cities, people living in abandoned buildings. Many of them are unaccounted individuals and families because those conducting the point-in-time survey do not travel into the woods, under the bridges, or other secluded places. In 4 months, from October 21st to January 22nd of this year, Keystone Mission has provided nearly 3,000 meals to men and women experiencing homelessness in Wilkes-Barre. In 2020, they provided 15,000 meals between Lackawanna and Luzerne County. But there are roadblocks to services. In Luzerne County, presently, there is no day shelter or a drop-in center available to men and women experiencing homelessness. Therefore, the opportunity to educate them on how to receive services is lacking. Ruth Place is a center for women. The Soup Kitchen is a source for meals. St. Teresa's Haven, a traveling shelter. But there is no center in Wilkes-Barre that is established to invite men and women off the streets and into an environment that will care for them, educate them, and empower them towards a better life. Many roadblocks present themselves on any given day, such as securing a photo ID, birth certificate, or a social security card. To receive any government-issued documents, you need one or more of them. So for example, to receive a driver's license in Pennsylvania, you need a birth certificate and a social security card. But if you don't have a birth certificate, then you need a driver's license and a social security card. If the man or woman doesn't have a birth certificate or a social security card, they cannot acquire a driver's license. Still, you need a birth certificate and a social security card to get a driver's license. It can become a never-ending cycle. The man or woman would begin to think the system has failed them, and the system and agencies would start to think that they are neglected, lazy. Guests of Keystone Mission can take in round and round to get basic government IDs and documents to seek further support for medical, mental health, and treatment. Keystone Mission is educated on how to serve the men and women experiencing homelessness. Their staff has built partnership with community agencies and educated themselves by understanding the laws and regulations to acquire any one of the government IDs. Even good policies can be presented to be roadblocks. For example, men and women cannot smoke on public square without getting ticketed. and men and women cannot be at public square after night. These are good policies for the city, but the question presents itself, where can these men and women go? Keystone Mission has proposed to open up a center in Wilkes-Barre called the Innovation Center for Homeless and Poverty, have resources and classes and programming available to educate and empower men and women experiencing homelessness. The guests, as they like to call them, will have access to case management, a proper meal, laundry services, and services focused on helping them get off the streets and into drug and or alcohol treatment, mental health, or more. These are steps for a total life transformation, and it's a good starting point. So I propose that we look into partnering with Keystone Mission. They know the resources that are available to help people with homelessness and get around the roadblocks. And with cooperation from the city and agencies and other businesses, I think we can do a lot for the city of Wilkes-Barre. So I also would like to recommend to the mayor that a creation of a mayor's homeless task force to meet and coordinate with these various agencies. And of course, as always, when I recommend something, I'm here to help to be and serve on the committee. And the last thing is Sam, Troy, you're not here. This is for Sam. You know, Sam has been, I'll bring it up, and because Beth also mentioned it too. Sam has always been mentioning the need for a Citizens Advisory Committee, and as I go through every ordinance and the codes to find things, I stumbled across this at Article 3, that there is a Citizens Advisory Committee on the books. It just hasn't been filled. It was created in 1970, it looks like 1973. City Council hereby creates a Citizens Advisory Committee for the city. The Citizens Advisory Committee shall be 16 people in number, structured to represent each neighborhood of the city, and their issues can deal with public finance, health, education, welfare, and labor in the city. And the membership is selected by and rests only with the mayor. So I was good to see that. You know, our codes are and our ordinances are extremely long, so it's interesting to stumble upon things that people would like. So I wish Sam was here for me to know that there is one, and the mayor can certainly populate it and use it as the ordinance says. I think that's it. Okay, sorry everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Marconi.
Yeah, I do. I have a few, but not as much as Tony. Just a few here. I'm going to be bouncing back and forth a little bit. A couple for Charlie. So it's golfing season, and I've noticed up at Hollenbeck Golf Course that some of the nets have fallen down. Charlie, if we can just give them a call and see if we can get them replaced. I also have a couple questions on Sherman Hills. And Charlie and I had a meeting on Monday about inspections and a couple other things. So I was just wondering how the inspections work up there, Charlie, and how often they are. There are 344 units. Also talking about inspections, the Sterling Annex, it's a new apartment building downtown here. It's, you know, the apartments are absolutely beautiful. I believe there's 29 of them there too. And same question, I was just wondering how we go about inspecting them as well.
Sherman Hills was, it's every 2 years. They were just inspected on March 7th, all the units, except for the fire damage, which we're going back and inspecting. All the information about the inspection is given to the new owners. The Annex needs to get an occupancy permit, and part of that is the inspection of the apartments.
Okay. Thanks. Now, I just want to touch base too on the American Rescue Plan money. Just back with the suggestions and projects maybe for the ARP money. So I'm looking here at an article that I printed out, and there's a place in Connecticut that is using the money for road cleaning equipment, specifically a street sweeper. So I was hoping maybe we can allocate some money for a street sweeper and also a vacuum machine as well. There's been some residents have asked me about this, and I know I brought it up in the past several times. So being that, like I said, there's other places that are able to get these, maybe we can take a look at it as well. I believe it's going to come under the general government expenditures, under the water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure here, according to some of the information I have. Also, it seems like there's, since the pandemic, it just seems like there's been an increase in trash on the roads and throughout the city. It just appears to be that way as well. Also, on just a suggestion, I think we should take a look at perhaps allocating bonus money for some of our employees in the city, such as fire, EMS, police, parking, our DPW guys, health and code. These people, the employees, they've been out working during this pandemic. They're on the streets, they're in the houses, day in and day out. They're putting themselves at risks daily. So I would hope that maybe the mayor and Charlie can take a look at that, and see if we can come up with something like that too. One quick thing also, Charlie, the license plate readers for the police department, how are they working out? Or Mayor?
We only have one set up right now. It's in the vehicle. The vehicle pulls into a parking lot. It actually scans the license plates and tells us if there's anything that's, as far as outstanding warrants and things like that. We are looking at we received a grant from Mr. Cartwright, $2.1 million. And I think we spoke about that before. That's going to be initiating several things. One is going to be cameras in all the police vehicles. The other thing is going to be what we're calling a shot spotter, which means if there's a gun goes off anywhere in the city, we're going to know what type of gun it is, where it went off instantaneously. The third part of that is the license plate readers. We might have them in every single vehicle, every single police car. So those monies are going to be utilized for those things, and it's been approved through federal government. So we're just waiting for that.
So we do have the money for them. We're waiting for approval.
It's been approved.
Okay.
We have to wait for it to be allocated. We have not received it yet.
Okay.
But they're the plans that Chief Coffey and I sat down and said, how do we want to spend this money? And they're the things that he recommended as the police chief.
All right, great. Thanks. Showing Annex. Looks like that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Belisca?
Lisa's going to be handing these out. This is a report, Mayor and Charlie too. A report I requested from the Long Valley Sanitary Authority, and Bill and John had mentioned it. And they had told me last year they started out in South Wilkes-Barre and didn't get completed through the whole city. This year, though, they started in the north end, as you said. And they cleaned 152 streets in the city so far this year, which is only February, March. And if you look on page 2, Charlie and Beth, those are the catch basins that you requested on Monday. That got done on Tuesday. But 152 streets and a lot of catch basins. Okay.
Thank you very much, too, for your quick response on those catch basins. It's greatly appreciated. Did you have a question, Mr. Marshall?
Are you done, Mike? Yeah. I do have just one comment there, Mike. Being that you're down there, maybe you can speak with your colleagues about like what Mr. McCormick had said about some better communication, so we can get our parking enforcement out there to try and get some of these vehicles off the streets.
I know they posted them.
Yeah, they are posted, but just a thought.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I'm up. So just to start, not to keep circling back to the same thing over and over again, but I think that Wilkes-Barre is in a really unique position to use American Rescue Plan funds to truly help the residents of our community in really dramatically different ways. With the passing of these resolutions, we will be well on our way towards bettering Wilkes-Barre for everyone. And that was my goal in introducing this resolution. This is for the people of our city. The people of our city, in my opinion, have been ignored long enough, and I think it's time to finally create a city our people deserve. That can be done, and that is being done, with the passage of the rail study and the passage of the resolution related to the American Rescue Plan funds. I haven't been on council as long as other people, but my education's in political science and policy studies, and I think that Wilkes-Barre is really at a turning point right now. To be completely candid and transparent here, I think that if we don't make a change in the next year or so, I think we're going to see a dramatically different Wilkes-Barre, not for the better. I think that we really need to reevaluate what we're doing economically and socioeconomically, and that begins with something like the rail system in Wilkes-Barre. That will dramatically change the course of Wilkes-Barre's future. And I think that it's time to listen to people like Sam, an 18-year-old who is literally the future of Wilkes-Barre. I'm super excited about it, and I want to thank also Darren Snyder for truly spearheading this effort. We wouldn't be here without your efforts, so thank you. Next, one question that I had is, have utility companies been fined as we were told they were going to be for pave cuts that were not fixed properly?
I didn't hear what you said. I can't hear you.
Have utility companies been fined as we were told they were going to be for pave cuts that were not fixed properly?
Yeah, you want to answer? No. We've actually sat down with the utility companies, and there's actually some contractors that we said we don't want working in the city any longer.
Okay.
And we've also repaired some pave cuts, if you want to call them that, and actually given the utility companies the bill for repairing them.
Okay.
So we're watching it very closely. We had a meeting with the utility company 2 weeks ago, and there were ongoing meetings that we're having with them expressing how they're repairing the streets and so forth. So it's an ongoing thing, but yes, we have been taking very aggressive approach.
Great. And have we collected any money from the utility companies?
Yeah, like I said, we've billed them and we've received money.
They have been, okay. All right. Next, Kirby Park. I was sent some photos that I could send Charlie tomorrow morning of specifically the pond in Kirby Park and some of the trails that are just in really rough shape, and I'll pass them along, and hopefully we could allocate some funds to help remedy those. Okay, and that's all I have. Moving into public discussion. Anne Saccone.
Hi, I'm Anne Saccone from Wilkes-Barre, and this is my first city council meeting, and trust me when I say I didn't want to be here, but I kind of got coaxed into it. So, the reason that I'm here is I'm a tenant at Sherman Hill Apartments, and I've been there for several years. I went to went to 3rd Ave when I was 12, and then I was in the 1972 flood, and my parents moved us to Abingdon Heights, Charlotte, North Carolina, and then about 20-something years ago, here back to Wilkes-Barre. So, I'm currently living now in Sherman Hills, and the reason that I came here is there's been a lot of people that have really been fighting for me, and for the tenants at Sherman Hills. I want to first thank the mayor, who, unlike the other mayor, took the time to speak with me on the phone, called me back. Been really great. And I want to thank Tony Brooks, who's not even in my district, and Tony is like kind of making me want to switch to be a Republican, because he went out of his way to stay in touch with me, because I was in a recent fire, and also to stay in touch with me over several of the different things going on as far as the violence and the shooting. So I really appreciate that. I just want to say something real quick too. I believe, how do you pronounce your name, Mr. Marconi? I heard you mention about the city inspector. that you said that they came on March 7th. Basically, all the city inspector does is he walks into the apartment, he checks your fire alarm, and he leaves. I spoke to him yesterday also, and I asked him when was the last time that he had done an inspection, and he told me 4 years ago. So for 4 years, that place was just ignored, and now it's just a dump. It's disgusting. Besides just the, the violence that is going on. So, for him to just do that, maybe somebody needs to inspect the inspector. That's just my opinion. But the last thing that I want to say is, I believe that if we're going to have any change in Sherman Hills, my suggestion or proposal is to have a guard station. Where you have a guard 24 hours, unfortunately, people that live there, not everybody, need to be treated like children. Okay, so I think that it's important to keep the shootings out. And let's be honest, nobody cared about the shootings years ago. They only started caring about the shootings when it got into the residential neighborhoods. Then it became a problem. So my proposal is to have a 24-hour guard station. And this way, when you come in, they can maybe give the residents some kind of special card, ID, or whatever, when you come in there. And then for people who have guests, I think it would be important to check their license or ID. Because let's face it, gangs and drug dealers are not going to want to show their ID. And I think that would cut down at least 50% on the unsafe environment there. So basically, I'm nervous. That's all I can say right now. And I want to tell you I appreciate all of you for listening to me. I want to thank the mayor again, too, for that skate park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something? Yeah, thank you so much for coming, Ann. You're not the only person I hear this idea from. In other conversations I had with people at Sherman Hills about a 24-hour security guard that people would check in. I know I used to live in a high-rise building when I lived in New York, and the residents had a card, pretty easy. But if a guest came, the guest had to show their driver's license. They wrote down the driver's license information and then called you to say, hey, do you have a guest? Come down and get them, or do you want us to send them up? We all know that there are people who live in Sherman Hills that aren't on leases, that they use people to get a lease and then all of a sudden move people in. This would prevent that as well. If the person is really a legitimate family member moved in, that means there's no problem to go onto the lease. And then you would come and go through this guardhouse. If a particular apartment, as you have told me, there is exceedingly amount of traffic that comes to a particular apartment, obviously a 24-hour security guard who is checking driver's licenses would see this, and management would see that apartment X had 25 people one night. That's going to be a red flag. And I think you're right. If they are drug dealers and gang-related people, they're not going to turn over their driver's license and have the information written down. So I think your suggestion and idea would really overnight solve a big, huge problem in Sherman Hills. I'm very hopeful of this new owner, and I really do hope, and I know you've spoken to Dick Knapp. We put you in contact with him, and he responded right away. Poor Ann was burnt out of her apartment and had to go take a loan to go pay for herself to stay in a hotel. And that was completely, I think, on the bank of, or on the wallet of the owner. And I'm glad you had a great success and that he will pay your bills, because that's the only right thing that Sherman Hills should do, since the fire is not your fault and you needed a place to live. But when I was at your apartment, it is, to me, unfit for habitation. I just could not believe the hallways in that place. And the lack of landscaping. I know that's probably way down on the issue, but how that Park Shoe Circle that comes around, just the utter trash. And I think you told me that it seemed that the last owner deferred all this maintenance because they knew they were going to sell the building. To me, horrible thing to do to pass on to the new owner. But I'm hopeful that Dick Knapp will come up and meet with you, Mr. Mayor, and meet with the residents, and that we could finally turn around Sherman Hills. Thank you very much, Ann. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, of course. Brian Ferry?
How's everybody doing tonight? I've got some information for you guys if you're interested. Over here. Oh, wait. Thanks so much. When I printed it, when I printed those out, my printer was set up on a wonky kind of format, so you had to kind of flip the pages. It printed out weird. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah. So, talking about trains, and at the end of Dr. Metcalf's presentation, he said something that really resonated. And he said that the city has to show initiative. And that is probably the most important thing that we could do, is show initiative. And the way that we could be doing that is to change what the city looks like. And, and do it in a way that is going to facilitate rail and facilitate growth and show Amtrak that their investment in this area is going to yield benefits for them as well as the city. That is, Amtrak's a business. It all comes down to dollars. That's all they care about. They don't care about providing quality of life. They care about dollars. And so what could we do to help show them that we are invested in this? Along the existing train along the existing rail corridor, it's largely zoned as industrial. We haven't had industry in the city in quite some time. It's antiquated, it's bunk, we need to get with the times. And I know I keep saying that, but it's the truth. So the first step would be to rezone certain areas that are going to facilitate transit-oriented development. I can't talk tonight. Upzoning everything, getting it ready for more mixed uses, some residential, some commercial, stuff like that. Let's look at upzoning. We really, our C3 zone, which is what surrounds Public Square here, is C3, and the best part about C3 is that we don't have any parking requirements. More and more cities are moving towards completely eliminating parking requirements because parking begets more parking. We've all heard me go on about this. So let's get rid of parking requirements. All it does is hold us back. So let's start moving forward. And when you start looking at transit-oriented development, one of the things that they talk about is the importance of having, a platform or station, anything, opening onto a green space. So what that does is it provides a huge opportunity for Wilkes-Barre to buy and develop a plot of land at the corner of Scott Street and Penn Ave, where it all comes, where there's that wonky like 5-way intersection. That plot of land has been for sale for a long time. Let's start looking at ways that might be able to be developed as a station or a hub of some sort. And then we could go from there and open that up onto the entire block of Penn Ave to Washington Street and then Jackson to North Street. That would make an excellent place for a new public square. You know, if you look at Philadelphia or New York City or any traditionally designed East Coast city, you know, we have one square, and that's great. But look at Philly. Philly was designed around 5, you know, and New York has squares all over the place. Look at Savannah, Georgia. Their historic district has 23 squares, and, you know, around those squares, that's where you get the development. Look at Public Square. Well, I mean, we're not. But look at Public Square. Where's the highest density of development? Around Public Square. You know, so look at the ways in which, you know, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. You know, let's look at the ways in which cities have been developed for years and just roll with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
I want to give a shout out to Sam. But we need more architects and planners.
That's right. Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I want to make a comment. Thank you for bringing the handouts, Brian. I always really appreciate it and appreciate your thought process that goes into it. And I do agree we need more squares. And one thing that I think would be phenomenal to do is the parking lot that, for the old timers here, would know where Lazarus Department Store was, right? That parking lot, if we filled in the, it's kind of like when you go on Franklin Street, it looks like a missing tooth in planning terms, right? So we have probably, that's one of our, it is our best street, Franklin Street. But across from the library is a missing tooth. And there's that part, there's like 5 or 6 parking spots that are faced there. That could be 5 or 6 townhouses. And then if you go down around Northampton Street, where the entrance is to that parking lot across from the Y, there could be townhouses there. And then behind it could be filled in as a park. And you almost have great egress into the park and what's the opposite of egress?
Ingress.
Ingress. You have, it's a long night tonight, right? You can go out into Midtown Village there. I mean, it just perfect. I hear from people all the time who are looking to live downtown in a townhouse. One thing we don't have, right? And I want to make sure that we are equal on affordable housing and as well as downtown luxury housing. We have to balance this together. And townhouses downtown, there's a great townhouse example in Kingston where there used to be the old Rudder School, right? There's those townhouses there that could be perfect. You park in them, you have no problem with parking, right? And it would fill in, and it would fill into a need that is in demand in downtown Wilkes-Barre. So I always thank you and value for your opinion.
Thank you. Okay, Bob Kalaboski.
Well, we're going out live again. And I think it's nice to talk about Philadelphia and this train that you just want to get. But if this train is going to cost me anything with this $100,000, I'm not for it. And if this train idea was so good, why isn't some private developer doing this thing? I don't have all the facts on this, but if it's going to cost the taxpayers of money, I think what should be done is get everything together and put it on the ballot. Just like when the arena started, I was an arena no. We still got a nice arena, but yet the taxpayers didn't get stuck with it. And when they're talking about Philadelphia, well, I was just down in Philadelphia, Germantown in November, very safe place to go. 2 weeks later, they fired 80 shots with 6 gunmen. And let's talk about Philadelphia, where them people will be coming up here on them trains with drugs. We got enough drugs coming up. That's what it's going to turn in. Pardon me?
They're already coming, and it's not really training.
Thank you. Yeah, Philadelphia. What do you think's going to happen? That's a core. We already got all the problems. Let's talk about Philadelphia, how they're saying how nice it is. And it is nice. How about the Marine they just blew away with an AR-15 and in his mother's driveway to steal his car? Car theft's up 152% down there. And we're going to get this train to come in from New York and Philly. Where do you think the drugs are coming from now? My main thing about this, not to keep ranting on about all the crime, is if you're gonna ask the taxpayers of this city to take money, and is that where the money's gonna come from? The taxpayers? I'm not for it, and I think it should be put on the ballot. Because you're talking a lot of money. Put it on the ballot. And a good place we could get the $100,000, if you people we get is off that health care, that'll pay the $100,000 just in case. But when we're talking about, Mr. Marconi, you're talking about the Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority cleaning the roads, correct? How they're doing a good job? Don't forget, every one of us is paying this stupid rain tax. And that's what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be doing it. But yet we're paying for it. So, I mean, you could tell me they're doing a nice job, but guess what? We're the ones that are paying for it with our rain tax. I have a property, I don't put an ounce of water on the street, and I'm getting a rain tax. And this other thing you said about this committee, Mr. Brooks, an advisory committee or something, well, we already have an advisory committee. We have Mr. Barrett, we have you, we have Beth, we have Mike, we have Mr. Marconi. We already got an advisory committee. See, what that young kid's got to learn is what really goes on and what's gone on in this town the last how many years. The corruption, everything that went on, what Lee Naney's administration did years ago with their pay raises and everything, and look what all happened. That kid has a lot to learn, and he seems very intelligent. But what he should do is do the history of what happened to this town, how it's been pilfered by these corrupt politicians who are no longer here, but yet all got pensions and everything else. And let's talk about the nice development that McGroarty did that put us $10.5 million in debt. That kid he's got a lot to learn.
Bob, address council.
Well, I am.
You don't need to talk about anyone beyond the rail. You could address council.
All right, what? But I'm just saying.
And I'm just saying, address council.
All right, Ms. Collins, something you have to talk to these people about. I'm just trying to, but it was all right for Mr. Brooks to say different things to people. I'm not saying nothing bad about him. I'm saying he's got a lot to learn.
Please keep going.
All right, you have to stop interrupting me, okay? And Ms. Collins, you better sit down and tell these people. I have my rights. I'm not doing nothing wrong here. I'm just making my point. It's my right to come down here and say about Mr. Marconi with his $30,000 a year in health care, about Mr. Belushko with his health care, and about you with your health care, putting your family on it, and Mr. Brooks there. And I'm not doing nothing wrong. Ms. Collins, you got to tell these people, I have rights. The ACLU come in here one time and said, people of this town have the right to come in and talk. I listen to everybody talk. I'm sick of people interrupting me, and I'm not saying nothing bad. I'm just saying about how corrupt everything was. And if this train thing was so good, why aren't private business people doing it? And the point I was brought up on Mr. Marconi talking about the Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority. I'm not saying nothing bad, but it's the end. We're all paying for this stuff. You know, and I think this administration's trying very hard to do a good job, but we have this infighting. You know what I mean? This infighting, and you know who's going to end up paying for the infighting? The taxpayers of the city, like they do with all this health care and stuff. And when I'm talking about this health care, believe me, Beth, it's nothing personal against you or Tony or Mike. It's just pigism. That's all it is. You're there and you're absorbing it, and you're going to keep taking it, and there's nothing we could really do until we get rid of every one of you council people, because every one of you, in a way, are getting something. And I just hate when these people interrupt me. And I didn't mean nothing about that kid. I just said he's got a lot to learn of how corrupt everything's been in this city for I don't know how many years. And at least this administration's trying to do stuff right that I could see. And if I ever find out they're not doing it right, then I'll do something about it. Now, does anybody want to answer me? You had a lot to say tonight. No.
Looking at me? I can't tell who you're looking at.
No, you're sitting there. I don't even know you're
I
here.
can't see with the glasses. I wasn't sure who you were looking at.
Yeah. Just so you know, when I get like this, I just get frustrated. That's all.
Okay.
Okay, does anybody want to say anything?
Hold on. Mr. Snyder?
Dad, you got to stand up to the microphone because we can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sure that you hear me. You mentioned that crime, with train leading to an increase in crime. And I've done a lot of research, and one of the reports that I saw from Bloomberg was that that's a major myth and a major misconception that mass transit would lead to increases in crime. And that there were studies in the country, in Atlanta, Charlotte, and in Vancouver, that showed that transit stations actually showed a reduction in crime. So that argument is a myth and a major misconception based on these different studies that were conducted in Atlanta, Charlotte, and Vancouver.
Well, it might be a myth, but just so you
No
understand.
back and forth.
Now, you let other people go back and forth. I have the right to answer him. See, that's where I get upset. Now, I want to say something to him, but yet Tony could talk to people out there, other people could talk, that's okay. But when Bob wants to say something, then you're going to cut me off. And all I want to say is, it's going to be another hub. I don't care if they bring one load of cocaine in here in 6 months. It's still going to give them the
Mr.
opportunity.
Snyder did not ask you a question, okay?
Well,
So
I'm
I
just
can't
trying to
permit
respond to
that.
what he said.
I know, but I know.
Now, I'm not going to let you park where I said you could.
All right.
I revoke your permit.
Anyone else from council want to respond? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor, just so you know, I had a flashback on towing before. Your vehicle's up my yard. I'll give you a ride up.
Okay, great. Mark Schaefer?
Can you stop pulling me after Bob every week?
It's random, I promise.
I have to remember what I even wanted to talk about now.
I know. It's not on your sheet either. You didn't say, so I can't.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to say that we hear a lot of talk about there's problems with Sherman Hills, there's problems with this or that, and I agree. And as the resident talked about with Sherman Hills, a big problem is inspections and maintaining quality of care. I just want to say again, I said something similar a few weeks ago, that I wish instead of just hearing speeches about this is the problem, that's the problem, we would see council introduce more ordinances. I can't criticize you, Beth, because you just did that this week. You can put your words into action and came with a series of ordinances, whether you agree with it or not. Beth put it, what she had in mind, out on the ordinances. So I just would really like to see council a little more. If you have a problem with something, write in an ordinance, do something instead of just giving a long speech and keeping us all here. I thank the city administrator for his concerns around the Shade Tree Commission. I was familiar with the reform. I thought the idea was generally similar to the Planning Commission, get more people with actual requirements on the board. But the concept of unelected officials being able to just inform fines is deeply concerning to me. I think we've seen in recent weeks that these commissions aren't totally just appointed based on whether you deserve to be there, and your political opinions or what you post on Facebook matters. So with that happening in such a recent thing, I would be very concerned about an appointed body having the ability to apply fines and punish people, especially something as serious as Mr. McCormick mentioned with a lien on a house. That is a very serious issue that can affect you in a variety of ways. And I know we all care about our trees and want it to look pretty, but I don't know if that justifies giving an unelected board the ability to punish someone that way. Yeah, I would like to agree with everyone. The transit idea sounds great, but as our resident expert always brings up, you got to do it smart. You have to have a clear plan for what you want to do. I'll give a good example. I was in Portland last weekend, and Brian has corrupted my brain. I saw a bunch of apartments where they had the parking built into the ground floor of the building and then the housing on top. So as we were discussing previous weeks, it's not like in the new Geisinger building where it's right out, parking is right out front and then the building is way out back. I think we in general need to consider writing more ordinances and zoning rules that make it so that we do this kind of smart planning, whether it's the new train station, new housing, or any other issue. And the one last thing I want to throw in, as run down as Sherman Hills is, a big reason a lot of people are there is because it's one of the few places they can afford to live in the city. As someone who lives downtown, just last week, I sent my upstairs neighbor moved out. I sent my landlord's number to my friend, and she told me what he's asking, and it's ridiculous. My landlord is trying to jack up rates because he thinks the market can bear it, and as people pointed out, there are a lot of full units downtown, but I think we need to see more investment in low-income housing, more high-density building, where a lot of people can live in so that you can increase supply so that there isn't such a mismatch between demand and supply, and that will help drop rates. Yeah, thank you. I'd like to thank the controller for pushing so hard for trains. I know this is your obsession lately, and I love it. I hope you don't drive yourself too insane with it. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, thank you. I'm glad you agree with me on all these things, and stay tuned. There's going to be guidelines coming down for zoning and planning and a lot more ordinances.
Angel Mathis?
Angel Mathis, I thought I was going to be last. I agree with Mark, because I live downtown and my building was sold to Kings and it still sits empty 2 years later and 2 apartments later. And I would love to be a downtown resident yet again. Which brings me to why I'm here. I noticed that the city moved away from the bags into the stickers, which I think is a really smart move. Now, my question is, was that a revenue increase for you guys, or did you guys like break even for that? And the next thing is trash guidelines. Now that I'm in the neighborhood and not downtown, it's trash everywhere. I've never lived in a place where there's trash on trash on trash. You know, people start putting their trash out the day after. I mean, setting it out to the curb, literally, the day after the trash is picked up. And right now it's cold, so you don't smell it, you know. And another 3 months, it's gonna be reeking when it sits out there. My trash day is Thursday, so okay, they pick it up Thursday morning. Friday night, there's a bag out there. Then Sunday night, there's 2 bags out there. Come Thursday night, there's 5 bags, and none of them belong to me. And some of them the city picks up, and some of them they don't. And it's just trash everywhere, like literally trash. And then the trash go into the street, and then it get ran over. Then, you know, the critters crawl through the bags while they're there, and it's just trash, smelly, stinky trash everywhere, even though we can now afford to buy stickers, $2 of stickers for a bag of trash, which is awesome. So you don't have to buy 5 bags and spend $10 to get rid of your trash. You can buy what you need. So my thing is this, is there a way that, other than the calendar, because on my block, everything is multi-units and you guys only send out 1 calendar. And in my apartment building, I get the calendar. I get the calendar. Is it a way that, you know, something can be sent out to the residents as to how to dispose of their trash? Because, like I said, right now, it's cold, so you don't smell it. But, and then I'm learning in the neighborhoods that, you know, trash is very subjective, and the rules are very subjective to whoever put them. And like I said, you know, I'm always in favor of rent control for the downtown, for low-income housing. That's me. Because 13 years downtown, we never had a problem with trash, but not so much in the neighborhoods. The second thing I have is parking and a possible walkthrough with the mayor and any council person who would love to come do a walkthrough with me of my neighborhood. That's it.
You,
Oh, I'll walk with you. That's all.
yeah, I'll walk you. You're on the 400 block of South Franklin, right? Yeah, there's no parking there. Yeah, it's all off-street parking for most of it. Just
I know it's all off-street.
right, it's all.
One side of off-street parking.
And the trash there is absolutely horrible. So last council meeting, we did have a conversation where we want to continue this about how we crack down on people who put the trash out too early. So I've been very aggressive on South River Street, which is just horrible. And I bug Charlie so much, and I take photos of the trash that are out Wednesday when it's picked up on Monday, and you know what happens over the weekend. And one of the things I can't stand that bothers me is the college kids say, well, we're going away for the weekend. Well, where's your responsibility? That's what I want to ask. You're in college, you should learn to be responsible and not make excuses. And they make excuses all the time. And I want to see those landlords and those tenants fined one time.
The tenants aren't going to be fined, it's just the landlords.
So what I'm calling for is you knock on the door and you explain the situation, and you're right, maybe we can mail stuff, have another article in the newspaper, do a whole campaign about what is proper about sending out your trash and what day to do it. And I talked to one of the health people who go around and do this, and she mentioned to me that there does need to be a lot of knock on the door, explain what's going on. Got it. But the second time you do it, that's it. You're fined. And we should look at legislation to figure that out, because I think that's the only way we're going to really figure out how this trash problem is just bogging us down so much. And it is very depressing, right? It's so depressing to go around the city.
Trash every day, all day long.
I know, it's terrible. So let me ask you about the stickers. You're in favor of keeping the stickers?
Yes.
Yeah. Is that something that's on your agenda, Mr. Mayor, keeping the stickers?
Hi, Angel.
Hi.
We want the stickers for one reason. It's temporary.
Oh, did
When I
I?
met
Okay.
with Mrs. McBride, I explained that it's temporary because we can't get bags. Okay, the resin shortage and other things. Other municipalities like Plains and Kings, other places are doing the same thing. We cannot get bags. We went from blue, we went to green, just whatever they had in the factory. We can't get them. So the only other way to collect your garbage is to do the sticker program.
I love it.
Well, you do, but some people don't. And I'll tell you why, because now you have to buy a bag and a sticker. I like it myself because I can put more pizza boxes in the bag. Okay?
But who doesn't buy bags?
Angel, I'm just giving you feedback, but the thing is, it's only temporary. If we're gonna make it permanent, I have to get city council's approval to make it permanent. I can't do that on my own. I only have the authority to do it on a temporary basis, as I explained to Mrs. McBride in our meeting. So if it's permanent, I need city council's approval, but as I said, it was all dependent on the supply. We just can't get them. Okay?
Okay.
I agree with the Angel on the stickers. I personally, well, I think now we're printing them outside of City Hall, but that's something that we could easily do in-house and like completely just negate that outside cost. So I don't know why we don't do it that, but.
You have my number, right?
Yep.
You don't have my number. You have my mom.
I have your mom's, yeah.
And, okay. Feel
call
free to
you.
disseminate my number to whoever wanted to do a walkthrough and we can set up.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Angel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Carr?
Jason Carr, Sailorsburg, Pennsylvania. I think after tonight, after the debacle that went on tonight with this council, it's very clear to me, I think probably as well to some of the people that sit behind me as well as the people watching, we need a new council in the city of Wilkes-Barre. The leadership provided by Ms. Gilbert tonight was, you, Ms. Chairman, was not impressive. I think if we had to sit back and rely on Ms. Gilbert or the controller, Darren Snyder, to actually do anything, we'd be in a lot of trouble. It's very clear and evident. It goes to my next point. I think for the mayor, the reason why there are so many empty storefronts in the city, not only in the downtown, but throughout the community, throughout the city, is maybe, and it's nothing personal, it's, Mr. Chairman, it's most likely the perception of a lack of leadership and a lack of transparency. And I think if the mayor could provide, Ms. Chairperson, more leadership around what has to happen in this city to move forward, it would help. And you talked about transparency your last 3 meetings. It would be, how nice would it be to go online and take a look and see how the mayor spent all that ARP money? When it becomes a guessing game or a cat and mouse game, I think it creates a lot of doubt. And then you have myself, you have Mr. Kalabowski, you have Mr. Sam Troy come in, and then, we raise hell because we don't think we're being leveled with. We are the taxpayers of this city, and we give money out of our pockets through tax assessments on our properties. And we pay your salaries, we pay your insurance, we pay your pensions. And it's very frustrating to know that what we know, there's things that I know in depth about what goes on in City Hall, and it's heartbreaking because there's so much more that can be done with the money I think the mayor has to really gain the trust of the business people within the city and inspire not only the people within the city, but outside the city, that Wilkes-Barre is a place to do business where people want to be. Right now, what you're seeing is that business people do not want to be in the city of Wilkes-Barre. It's very evident, it's very clear. Many reasons behind that. There's many takers. The city employees do more taking than any other city in Luzerne County. Between your pensions, all of the caveats that are within the union plans, it's a disgrace. And that's something, it goes back to the leadership of the mayor, Ms. Chairman, that, it's up to him to change how the city's perceived by state house reps, the senator, the president, business people. It's really heartbreaking. And going back to the point of transparency, it's up to the mayor to really share with the public, the people that are paying the bills, where the money goes and why it goes, where it goes. It's so important. And then lastly, at the Luzerne County meeting that I attended two meetings ago, and again, the mayor may take this as an attack, but it's not. Again, it's just a simple question around transparency and what's happening. But I'm trying to determine. I watched the meeting, and the attorney for King's College stated that the city of Wilkes-Barre agreed to accept a $25,000 annual scholarship from King's College in acceptance for the city, accepting that as a pilot for the 2 buildings that they purchased from the city. And all I'm wondering is the scholarship going to be administered to just the city employees and their children, or will it be a scholarship available to all citizens who reside in the city of Wilkes-Barre? Thank you so much.
Can I respond?
Yep.
Jason, we've never been offered a $25,000 scholarship for the Times Leader building. That's not true. If we were offered it, I would not accept it because I don't believe it's a fair thing to do. So that's not correct. Secondly, as far as the city, this year we have about $100 million in new investments in the city of Wilkes-Barre. Last year, and you know this because you own several buildings, transfer fees that are paid to the city for people buying properties, last year was a record year for the city of Wilkes-Barre in collecting transfer fees by over $1 million. It's the most we've ever collected in transfer because people are coming to Wilkes-Barre, buying properties, starting businesses. I was at a place today that was a brand new business, and it was started because of the Spark program that we started from the 9-point plan. We have 10 other new businesses starting up because of the Spark program that we gave $1 million to the Wyoming Valley Chamber of Commerce to start new businesses. So what I'm saying is, you can make statements, but I'm giving you facts. Over $1 million in new transfer fees last year, and according to Mr. Harris, he said, Mayor, we're on track right now to beat what we did last year. And I say again, over $100 million in new investments. And I've sat with people, and we've sold city properties that have not been sold for 10, 15 years. We've sold properties where people are coming in and investing and putting new buildings up. Also, by the way, you ask about how I spend money. I cannot spend over $20,000 without City Council's approval. That is part of the process I have to live under. Over $20,000, I have to come before City Council, and City Council has to approve it. So, I understand what you're trying to say, but I'm giving you hard facts. This city is going to have a blowout year this year. It's going to be amazing the whole landscape's going to change. So, Jason, I'm giving you facts, and this is just true numbers that I'm working with right now. This is going to be an amazing year for the city.
Anything else? All right, motion to adjourn?
Motion.